So, what does the modern family actually look like? Today, we're going to zero in on one of the biggest changes we've seen, the rise of single-parent households. We'll connect those big national statistics to the personal realities on the ground, and we'll explore the systems, like child support, that are designed to help. All right, let's dive in.
So, let's just start with the biggest question right up top. How has the American family really, truly changed over the last 50 years? Because, let's be honest, the family portrait of today looks almost nothing like it did for our parents' or our grandparents' generation. And to really get our heads around this shift, we've got to start with the data. The 30,000-foot view of this whole changing landscape.
Okay, so this slide gives us a snapshot of where kids are living right now, in 2023. And you can see the contrast immediately. While a big majority of white and Hispanic children are in two-parent homes, that number drops to less than half for black children. In fact, look at this. For black children, the percentage in mother-only homes is nearly identical to those in two-parent households. It's a really stark demographic reality, and it means a fundamentally different starting point for millions and millions of kids.
Now, this didn't just happen overnight. If you look back at this timeline, you can see that way back in 1970, only about 8% of white kids lived with just their mom. For black children, though, it was already almost 30%. Fast forward to today, and that upward trend in mother-only households, well, it's consistent across every single group. This right here is the 50-year shift that has completely reshaped what childhood looks like for so many.
So, okay, we've seen the numbers. But what does this data actually mean for a kid's life? What's the real-world impact of these changing family structures? Well, the research on what happens when a father is present is incredibly clear, and, frankly, it's pretty startling.
And this slide just lays out the stakes perfectly. On one side, research shows that when a father is absent, a child is way more likely to face poverty, has a 7 times higher chance of becoming a teen parent, and a much greater risk of substance abuse. But then you look at the other side. An engaged dad is linked to kids being 43% more likely to get A's in school, having higher self-esteem, and just better overall mental health. The contrast is just, wow, it's powerful.
And if you need one number, just one, to drive this whole point home, here it is, 85%. A staggering 85% of all youth in the justice system grew up in a home without a father. That single statistic, it really speaks volumes about the societal ripple effects of father absence.
And those ripple effects are a huge reason these complex systems even exist. So with all that as context, let's pivot and talk about the systems designed to provide financial support, specifically the very complex world of navigating child support.
First things first, we've got to understand a really key term, arrears. Now, this isn't just about a late payment. Arrears, that's the total amount of past due, unpaid child support. It's a legal debt that does not just go away, not when a child turns 18, not even through bankruptcy. It sticks with you.
And here's the kicker. That debt grows. In a state like Texas, for example, unpaid child support arrears tack on 6% simple interest every single year. You can see how quickly falling behind can snowball into a massive financial burden for a non-custodial parent.
Now, this is a critical distinction that so many people miss. If your income changes, let's say you lose your job, you can go to the court and ask to modify your current monthly child support payment. But that doesn't touch the debt, the arrears that's already built up. That past due amount, it's still there and it still has to be paid off.
But wait, before we even get to custody or child support, there's a huge first step for unmarried fathers, and that's establishing paternity and actually securing their rights as a parent.
Seriously, for a father who isn't married to the mother, establishing legal paternity is everything. It is the one and only way to get your name on that birth certificate and secure your legal rights to things we all just take for granted. Like asking a court for custody, or even just getting access to your kid's school and medical records.
So, how's it done? Well, this chart lays out the 3 main ways. The most common is a voluntary acknowledgement of paternity that's often signed right there at the hospital. Now, if the parents agree on things like custody and support, they can sign what's called an agreed paternity order. But if there's disagreement, well, then it becomes a court-ordered process. Each path makes the father legal, but they all involve different steps.
Okay, so we can all agree this system is complex and the stakes are obviously super high. So what happens if you're a parent who's fallen behind and you genuinely want to make things right? Let's talk about some actionable advice for getting back on track. Here we go. A clear 6-step checklist to get things going in the right direction. And it starts with something so simple. Just make contact with the child support office. I know, it sounds almost too basic, but it is the single most important first step. From there, it's all about clear communication. Explaining your situation, updating your info, asking what services they have to help you, making a good faith payment, even a small one, and crucially staying in touch.
And you know what? There is help out there. Two of the biggest hurdles for parents are finding a job and just figuring out visitation rights. So there are programs like NCP Choices that can help with job skills and employment searches. And for those tricky legal questions about custody and access, the Texas Access and Visitation Hotline actually provides free information from attorneys. These are absolutely vital resources. You know, at the end of the day, after all the data, all the legal terms, all the checklists, we have to remember what this is really all about. The entire purpose of these super complex systems is to make sure that children have the emotional, the physical, and the financial support of both of their parents, their well-being. That's the ultimate goal here. And that brings us to maybe the most important piece of advice for any parent trying to navigate all this. You have to be your own best advocate. That means being prepared, staying involved, asking questions until you actually understand the answers, and just showing up. It's really about taking active ownership of your responsibilities and your rights.
So this brings us to our final and maybe most important question. When you look at the entire picture, from these huge national trends all the way down to the personal struggles, how can we, as communities, do a better job of supporting children and parents through all these complex challenges? It's a question that really affects all of us.